Yo, what's up, everybody? I'm Bob Walters. This is Locked Up Sports Mets trade deadline talk. Welcome to the show. I know I'm a little bit late. I had to get my daughter to bed. Took a little longer than expected, so here we are at 6:52. Welcome to everybody watching on TikTok. Welcome to everybody on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. I believe is also where we are broadcasting. Rough loss last night for the Mets. Right, last night that kind of signified everything that the Mets need or that they have to address going into the trade deadline, right? The starting pitching. Some people think they need starting pitching. Montas not good last night, right? He wasn't very good. He hasn't been great. And I know he's a back of the end starter, but he really hasn't been a good pitcher really all this year. He's thrown a couple good games here and there, but nothing crazy. So that addressed that. It also addressed obviously the bullpen and Brazoban. I've been telling you for how long that Brazoban stinks. He comes in and in the blink of an eye, the Mets go from 5-1 up to 6-5 down. You went to get a drink in the kitchen, you came back and it was 6-5. And that addresses the bullpen need, which I think is the most important need for the Mets here this week with the trade deadline. Then it also addressed what they could possibly be giving away, what they could be dealing away to other teams. And that is the influx of talent that they have in the infield right now. At third base generally, but you got Beatty, you got Mauricio, and you got Vientos. And two of the three last night with huge hits. Vientos with a grand slam, a huge grand slam. And now Vientos is finally starting to hit. And you can look at that in one of two ways. You can look at it like, oh no, we don't want to lose Vientos. We can't lose Vientos now because he's hitting and he's back to where he was last year, and we don't want to get rid of him. That's kind of not the way you should look at it. You should look at it as, okay, good. He's finally hitting. Now we can maybe get something of value for Vientos if they decide to trade him. Now, I'm okay either way. I'm okay if they keep Vientos. I mean, listen, he's shown that when the lights are the brightest, he can do it. Right? Last year in the postseason, he was one of the Mets' best hitters. Hit multiple big home runs against Philadelphia. It just was clutch every single time he came up to the plate that he needed to be clutch. He got the hit that they needed. So Vientos, okay, I can live with getting rid of him, and I think it's good that he's finally starting to hit and finally starting to look or resemble a little bit like the player that he was last year. Mauricio, breakout. This is a breakout week for Mauricio. I mean, a big home run 2 nights ago in San Francisco. Last night in the 9th inning, down a run against a lockdown closer who's given up like 7 runs all year, has only blown 5 saves coming into the game, and Mauricio took him deep, and it was a no doubt about it shot, and he knew it right off the bat, and that shows kind of the power and the presence and the clutchness that Mauricio, I think, has. He's younger than Vientos. Beatty, he didn't do anything last night. I don't believe he did anything last night, and I think Beatty's been up and down this season, right? I've been in favor of trying to trade Beatty out of those 3 players. I'd rather get rid of Beatty, but I don't think you're going to get the value that you're going to get for a Vientos, especially right now. I think the market's going to be hot for Vientos. Okay, yeah, he struggled most of the year, but all these teams saw him do it last year. And they saw him do it in the playoffs, and now they've seen him do it this year in the current situation in the last week or so. I don't think you could be one of those people who is like, we can't get rid of Vientos now because he's hitting. He's had a good week. You can't look at this thing like that, and that's not how the GMs look at it. They don't look at it like, oh, okay, now Vientos is back, right? Because the truth of the matter is over the long haul of this season, at least, he hasn't had a good year. Vientos was terrible for most of the year. He was injured for a little while, yes, but he was god awful for the most of his time in the lineup this year. And now, yeah, he's hitting, and that could be a good thing because I think the Mets, from what it sounds like with the reporting, they are most likely to move Vientos. And Mauricio, I think Mauricio's younger. I'm not saying he has a bigger upside because we know the upside with Vientos is he can perform in the playoffs in October when the lights are the brightest. He can hit 30 home runs. He had 27 last year. He could drive in 100 runs. He plays a decent field. He's decent with the glove. He's not a liability anywhere over there. But, and the Mets, and listen, this is a good thing, folks. It's a good thing that the Mets have an influx of talent on the left side of the infield because you can afford to get rid of one of them. And yeah, I get it. You might trade Vientos to somewhere and he might be in the All-Star game next year and he might be a star. That's just the nature of the business. You can't get too upset about that. I mean, we've seen it before and we've survived it as Mets fans. And we survived much worse than Vientos. We survived Jeff Kent, who was really, borderline iffy, okay player, average on the Mets. Went to the Giants and was a borderline Hall of Famer. Okay? Justin Turner, who was a bench player, a pinch hit player, went to the Dodgers, became a superstar, won multiple championships. We can do that. We can get through it if Vientos becomes a good player, but we have to get something back of value, and we have to get something back that is going to make us better today at this point in time. Because that's the only way it's going to be worthwhile for the Mets to get rid of someone like a Vientos or a Mauricio or a Beatty. And I think one of them three is definitely going to go. I think it's a high probability. I'd say 80 to 85% that the Mets get rid of a player that you're going to go, I don't know. I don't know if we should have got rid of him because they might become a star. But that's the nature of the beast when it comes down to the trade deadline and when it comes down to getting rid of players and getting value and getting good players back. You know, everyone wants to just, yeah, of course, it would be great if we could just dump all of our bad players onto a struggling team and with maybe one or two lower minor league guys who get potential, have some potential in the future. But you have no idea. Dump them off with a bunch of players who are struggling and get back a superstar like say, Suarez, who's hitting 35 home runs. We'd all love to do that. Everybody would love to fleece these teams. The problem is they're trying to get their team better too. And that's a problem. That's the problem people have when they look at this trade deadline is, here, let me give you all of our bad players and give me your best player. That's why we're not GMs, because we'd never get a deal done. You have to be willing to part with players who are playing well at the moment, who have just recently gotten big hits for you, because it ups their value. You're not going to give them somebody that stinks and just try and talk them up. The Yankees are famous for that. The Yankees are famous for talking up their prospects down in the minors. Oh, he's not available this year. Nobody's untouchable. He's going to be a superstar. He's our next second baseman. He's our next shortstop. And in reality, he's an average player. And yeah, sometimes these other GMs, you get a guy who's just dumb enough to buy into it, but the majority of them won't. And if they are one of the guys who buys into that stuff that you say, and when you pump up a young talent in the minor leagues, a double A player, you're not going to be a GM very long, because you're going to get back all the stuff. You're going to have sent to say, yeah, your salary dumped, but it turns out he stank. All the guys you got back, it's not like we give you 10 guys. Okay, we're getting back one. Oh, we gave you 10 guys. If 10 guys stink and 10 guys never make it to the majors, or 10 guys are not very good, it's no value in that. So you have to give up value, and I think that's why it's going to be Vientos or Beatty that go. I think the Mets are kind of seeing Mauricio come into his own. That's not to say next year he might get traded, because last year at this time, the Mets would have said, no way, Vientos is untouchable. And here we are a year later, and he had a struggling second year, and he struggled at the plate, and now he's hitting well. That could happen to Mauricio next year. But as of right now, I don't think the Mets are going to really move Mauricio. I really don't. But this team, and last night it was as evident as ever, this team has got to get a bullpen or two arms on this roster that can actually get outs and help this thing get to Diaz. Because if you're going to put in Brazoban and you're going to have a 4-run lead just evaporate from the time I walk to my kitchen to get a drink and come back and have it be 6-5, you're not going anywhere in October. And that's just the bottom line. You're not going anywhere without a bullpen that can get outs in pressure situations. And the Mets have too many arms that can get no outs in pressure situations. How many times do you have to see this bullpen blow up and blow leads and blow games? And I get it, all bullpens do. There's very, very few good, solid bullpens in baseball. That's just the nature of the beast. Because if they were excellent pitchers, they'd probably be in the starting rotation. And if they're great for an inning or 2 innings, they're closers. And that's what the Mets are going to be going after here. They're going to be going after teams that are out of it, that are struggling. They want their closer. Because if you could stick a closer into the 8th inning or the 7th inning, and then you have Stanek in the 8th inning, then you could get the thing to Diaz, who has been excellent this year. Yeah, he's walked the tightrope a couple times in a row here, but that's what's going to happen. The Mets lived for years and years with John Franco leaving the tying run on third base every save he had. So you're not going to be perfect. There are no Mariano Rivera's left. There was only one, and he's not coming around again. So Diaz is having as good a year as you could ever ask for. And if you can get another team that is out of it, if you can get their closer, ideally somebody who's under contract for next year too, or maybe 2 years after that, whatever. That's not a rental, and you have to give up, let's say, a Vientos or a Beatty for them. I think you jump at the deal. You jump at it. Now, some of the closers that the Mets are looking at here, listen, they're looking at Ryan Hensley, the closer for the Cardinals. Cardinals, I would be okay with Hensley. I'd be okay with giving Vientos for Hensley. Right? They're also looking at center fielder. The number one thing they have to address is the bullpen. You can't go anywhere, and you're not going to do anything until you get this bullpen figured out. Because you could have, the Mets tried. Look at last night's game. They tried to outscore their bullpen, and they couldn't do it. They got a grand slam. They got tied the game in the 9th, and then still in the bullpen, Soto, the guy who they got just last week from a trade, came on at first and second, nobody out, almost got out of it, gave up a base hit. So even when you score runs and you hit home runs and you get grand slams and you get clutch hits, the bullpen will still break your back. They're back-breaking losses with the bullpen. Last night was a back-breaking loss. Even though it's not that big of a deal. They won 7 in a row coming into yesterday. They're having a fantastic road trip. They're starting off the second half being very well. That's a painful loss last night. If you're a Mets fan and you went to bed and you stayed up till nearly 1 o'clock watching that thing and you went to bed afterwards, you were pissed off because it was one that you had. You were up 5-1. Vientos hit the grand slam. He should have had 2 home runs, but he was robbed on a brilliant catch. Right? The umpire was against you last night. Not even close. He clearly just had a vendetta against Soto. You overcome all that. You had a 5-1 lead. You go to get a drink in the kitchen and you come back at 6-5. Then you still are resilient. Mauricio in the 9th inning ties it off a great, one of the game's best closers. Mauricio puts it over the wall, tie game. You're all about, okay, now we can't lose this game. We're coming back. We're going to win. And what happens? Not 20 minutes later, first and second, nobody out, and now you're in it deep. Gets 2 outs, gets a big strikeout, and then just can't finish the inning, and he gives up a base hit. And there's a guy out there with no arm in left field. Not that they were going to get him anyway, because there were 2 outs. He was running on contact. But, I mean, come on. A bad bullpen will destroy your team. And right now, the Mets are borderline bad bullpen. They're just above having a bad bullpen is what I would say. Because it's not terrible. You do get flashes out of these guys, and you do, mix them around, and every once in a while you'll get Reed Garrett, and you'll get Raleigh, and you'll get Diaz, and then they have a good game. Just on the last homestand, they had that game with Senga. Senga went 3 innings. The bullpen went 6 innings and was fantastic, giving up 1 run. And you're like, oh, all right, we got a good bullpen. No, because then 2 nights later they blew it, and then they blew it last night. And they even Diaz nearly blew it twice, 2 games in a row before that. So you need to address the bullpen first because the Mets have good offense. Nimmo is hitting well. Obviously, Soto and Alonso's in a little bit of a funk right now. He'll come out of it. Alonso's a power hit. That's what power hitters do. They go in and out. They strike out a lot. They streaky. You got Mauricio hitting. You got Vientos hitting. Nimmo's had a fantastic year. Even Marte, when he gets in the lineup, is raking the ball right now. So you got to have this defense. This offense is going to be good, but it's hard for even a good offense to outscore a bad bullpen. It just is. And they're back-breaking losses because they're losses like last night where you're like, oh, come on, we had this game. The game was over. It was 5-1. Vientos hit the grand slam. And then even when they came back and tied it in the ninth, you were like, we got this. This team is good. This team is resilient. But it wasn't because you had a bad bullpen. And another factor and another thing is that, listen, the trade deadlines and trades are not going to solve all your problems. You can't solve all your problems with the trade deadlines. One, because almost I'd say about 75 to 80% of the teams think they're still in this thing. Teams that are 3 games out of a wild card spot, 5 games under 500, they're looking at it going, we got that. We're just a good week away from being in the wild card. They don't want to trade everybody. They don't want to get rid of their good players when they could be just a good week away from the playoffs. And they're going to sell to their fan base that we're going to sell everybody off and then maybe we'll be good in 2 years. So there's very few teams that want to trade players, and that drives up the price. And when most of the teams need bullpen help because there are no good bullpens out there really, that means it's going to cost you money, and it's going to cost you players like Vientos. It's going to cost you your young players. It's going to cost you your play. Of course, you'd like to figure it out how to get these guys on this team without giving up one of these guys. Not happening. Not happening. So if you're one of those people that's going to sit there and go, oh, I think we can't give up Vientos, but we have to get a closer from one of these teams, or we can't give up Vientos. We need a center fielder that can hit 30 home runs. That you can't do that. That's dream world, fantasy world. So if you're going to play in fantasy world, then I don't know what to tell you. It's not going to happen. It's important. These guys, these general managers got to turn around and answer to their owners too. And if they turn around and go, well, I got these 6 double A guys who they might be all right. The owner's going to be like, what the hell am I supposed to do with this? How do I get people to put their asses in the seats in my ballpark for the next 2 months telling them that, oh, don't worry, we got people down in the minors now. We just fleeced the Mets system. No. They want Vientos. They want Mauricio. They want Beatty. They're probably asking about Sproat. They're probably asking about McLean. So you got to be willing to part with some of them. The question is, are you going to be willing to part with them or are you not? That's the question. And will Stearns be willing to part with them? Stearns is notoriously a guy who doesn't like to demortgage his future. He doesn't like to play. He doesn't like to pay pitchers big money, and he doesn't like to mortgage the future. I can respect that. But then don't come crying. Don't come talking about, oh, we could have done better. And when your bullpen fails in the first round or in the NLCS, and you lose a game, and it costs you a series, don't complain because you had a chance. If you have a game and Vientos goes 0 for 5 and the bullpen blows it, I don't want to hear it. You got to give up somebody of value. You just got to give up somebody of value. It's important. So the Mets, they go tonight again back in San Diego, game 2 of the 3-game series. This isn't they don't have the lineup out. It's a 9. I think it's 9:30. Same thing as last night. I like the 9:30 a lot better than the 10:30 because now I'm an old man now, and I struggle. I'm falling asleep in the late innings. And I'm waking up 2 innings later, and I don't know what happened. But I think, the 9:30 game. What am I saying? I lost the train of thought there for a second. The 9:30 games are much better. Over by 12:30. Last night's game was slow. That game was 10:30, 11 o'clock, and it was the 6th inning. But either way, that's neither here nor there. You got to get rid of one. They're going to want one of these players. Now, we said that obviously, if you watch this team, and you don't even have to watch this team every day, you know that the most important need for the Mets is bullpen. The hands down, most important need. Next, after that, I don't think they need a starting pitcher. I think, and from everything I'm hearing with the Mets and with people who are talking to people who are close to the Mets and front office guys, the Mets are in agreement with me where we'll take a top of the line starting pitcher if we get a good deal on him, but we don't need a pitcher. Right? Now, you could look and say, well, Montas was no good. Senga's been right? Since he came back. I have all the faith in the world that Senga's going to be okay. I think he's going to really ramp it up now these next couple starts. He hasn't been giving you the length. He was out for a month. I'm okay with Senga. Now, 2 more bad starts, I might get worried. But Senga, okay, I can live with. Minaya, I think, has looked fantastic. I know he hasn't given you the 6 or 7 innings that you want to see out of Minaya since he came back. You got to remember, Minaya is still in his spring training. This is his 3rd or 4th spring training start. So he's gonna be okay. Peterson is an ace. I think Peterson is a fantastic pitcher. He's done everything you've asked of him all year. He's really stepped up when the rotation was in shambles. Peterson stepped up and he pitched good games. I think that's all important stuff. I really do. Now, if the Mets can get a front of the line starter that can start a playoff game for them at a good deal, obviously they're going to take it. And that's the word I'm hearing from the Mets is that if we can get a guy who can start a playoff game, we'll take it, obviously. And it's at a price that we like, we will take it. But you can't, you're not looking for a 5th starter here off the trade deadline. That's not the thing they need. They don't need it. They have Montas. Montas is, listen, 5th starters notoriously are not the most reliable things in the world. That's why they're 5th starters. So I know you can come at me and complain about, oh, Montas stinks and this and that and everything about it. He's a 5th starter. I don't know what you think. You're not getting 8 innings every time or 7 innings every time out of your 5th starter. It's just not going to happen. Okay, Clay Holmes is also like a 4th or 5th starter, and he's pitched damn well for you. The Mets have been fantastic with Clay Holmes. Peterson's your ace, then Senga, then Minaya. Then you get down to the bottom rungs of this rotation, and it is what it is. You hope to get 5 innings. The problem with the Mets is they get 5 innings and they can't get the 12 outs they need to complete the game, or even the 9 outs to get to Diaz to get that game in the bag. That's why you think these starting pitchers, they lose, and that's why they lose. And again, it goes back to the bullpen. Because when your bullpen stinks, you can't hold on the leads, and it's very hard to outscore and out-hit a bad bullpen. Because no matter how many runs you get, no matter how many hits you get, the bullpen just seems to match it and let up the same amount of runs, maybe some more, the same amount of hits, maybe some more. And it's not something that you really want to deal with. So center field, the Mets are looking at, hold on, who do I have here? Luis Roberts Jr. is one of the center fielders they're looking at. White Sox. Listen, I wouldn't waste your time with Luis Roberts Jr. Not that he's not a good player. He's got a good glove. But you're looking to upgrade in the offensive part of your center field situation, right? Tyrone Taylor's got one of the best gloves there is in baseball. He just can't hit the water if he jumps out of a boat. So he's hitting 200, 195. Luis Roberts Jr. is hitting 205 right now. He has potential to be a better hitter than Taylor, but you could be trading for the same player. And maybe even less of a player because he's not as good with the glove defensively as Tyrone Taylor is. He's just not. And you could tell me, and listen, McNeil has been decent in center field, but you don't want to make a trade, bring a guy in here, and have him sit on the bench because McNeil's better. That's not what you want to do. That's not how trade deadline is supposed to work. They're not looking to bring in a bench guy. They're looking to bring in a starter. They're looking to bring in a key reliever, a top of the line starting pitcher. And like we said, they're willing. The Mets have a lot to offer. The Mets are sitting in a good position here, folks. They got top of the line, like good, solid, above average players who have performed in the postseason, young infielders that can hit. Vientos, Beatty, Mauricio, Acuna. Now, if it was me, I'd take Acuna out of that situation and say, I'm not trading. I'm sorry, not Acuna. I would take Mauricio out of that situation and say, I'm not trading Mauricio. I'd get rid of Acuna. I'd have no issue getting rid of Acuna, and I'd have no issue if he turns out to be a good player either, because it is what it is. I'd have no problem getting rid of Beatty. I think Beatty is playing above his level right now. I think we've seen a couple years of Beatty where he goes up and down to the minors, to the big team, to the minors, to the big team. He has flashes of good stints at the plate. He has, his durability is it not durability. His versatility is kind of what I would want. Is the best thing about Beatty, right? He's all over the infield. He's on second base. He's at shortstop. He's at third base. He can play anywhere. He's kind of like a McNeil type of player. But McNeil is a batting champion. I don't ever see Beatty winning a batting title. I just don't see it. Now, there are people who think he's a good hitter, and he has gotten some clutch hits recently in the last month or two. But I don't think Beatty is going to be the player that really you want to keep and is going to make a difference. I think you could sell Beatty to another team as, hey, check this out. Look, he's hitting well this year. He's gone up and down. He plays all the infield positions. He could really be an asset to your team. I think you could sell Beatty, and somebody will buy it. But Vientos is going to be the tough call, and I don't even know how I would go. I would have to see the deal to say I'm going to get rid of Vientos, because I've seen him do it in the postseason when the lights are the brightest. I've seen him do it through a full regular season last year where he hit 27 home runs. I've seen him hit clutch home runs in the playoffs. It might be tough to let go of Vientos, but it's certainly not an untouchable type of situation. Of course not. The Mets don't have anybody that anybody has even brought up or talked about in trade deadlines that's untouchable. Of course. The Mets don't have those players. I mean, obviously, Soto and Lindor, obviously, but that's not what we're talking about here. It's going to come down to those three guys. Are you willing to get rid of Vientos? Are you willing to get rid of Mauricio? If a team is sitting there saying, well, it's either Vientos or Mauricio, you decide, we'll take whoever, and the deal will get done, I would give him Vientos. Mauricio's younger. He's currently playing better. I think he has a little bit bigger of an upside. I'm not saying it was a one-off last year for Vientos, but I'm saying I don't know if he could match that year after year. And the Mets aren't getting any younger either. You got to remember, listen, this window is not forever. Lindor's hit 32. Nimmo's 33. Soto's still young. Alonso's getting up there, if they even get Alonso back next year. So, it's not we got this huge window with a bunch of young kids, and there are kids in the system, in the pipeline, and they're coming. They got the pitchers, they got some hitters, they got some players up down there, but you don't know. Listen, if you're a Mets fan, you know that these things are not guaranteed. We sat through Lasting's millage. We watched Generation K fall apart. We know that, they got talent down there. But is it real talent? Is it talent that's going to be years worth of good baseball in Flushing? Maybe. But more likely than not, no. Not all of them. And certainly not all of them. So it's going to be an interesting, fun couple days here. Seeing what's going on with the Mets. Who do they deal? Who do they get? Listen, it's gonna be a lot of fun. And it's going to be all speculation, and none of this stuff really matters, right? That's why I generally don't like doing shows like this where it's a trade deadline, I just generally don't, because it really, we have no idea. We're not in the negotiations. We can tell you who's good, who we like, who we don't like. We have no idea. what's going on, what Stearns is talking about with other guys, because a lot of times the stuff that leaks out, it's not true. And they leak it out on purpose that it's not true. So you really don't know. We're just giving you what we get and what we think. And that's pretty much it. Mets and Padres tonight at, let me get you the time, because I want to say 9:30, but it could be 10 o'clock. Who knows? 9:40, same time as last night. 9:40 start for the Mets and the Padres tonight. You got, who's pitching tonight? Let's see. Is it Manaea tonight? Let me see. I don't have it right here in front of me. But either way, Mets and the Padres. Mets winners of 7 of 8. The win streak stops yesterday. Yeah, it's Manaea tonight. So Manaea 1-1, 2.19 ERA. Remember, he lost the first game, being the starter, pitching in the extra innings against Burgert, who's 1-0 with a 2.84 ERA. So listen, get back on track. You're better than the Padres. Win 2 out of 3 in this series. Go home, back to Citi Field, 5 of 6 on the road trip. Got the Giants coming in on Friday, I guess it would be. And by then, it's going to all be settled, right? We're going to know what happened in the trade deadline. We're going to know who's still on the Mets, who's in the minors. And I'm a big proponent. Listen, I wouldn't go crazy with the bullpen and getting rid of bullpen arms. I mean, and getting rid of potential stars for bullpen arms. The Mets are in a tough situation here. One, because they need bullpen arms desperately. They need to get somebody who's reliable in the 7th or 8th inning, and they can pair him up with Stanek, and they can do the 7th, 8th, and get this thing to Diaz where he's lights out. Imperative. If they want to go anywhere in the playoffs, and the Mets know this. This is not news to them. They need that in the worst way. But they also might have that already in the minors. Because McLean and Sproat and Tidwell, they might be the guys we need to come up in the bullpen, get us to Diaz. Because I can't sit here and go through 2 more months of watching Brazoban get thrown on that mound and just blowing games. Brazoban, for a month and a half, was the best reliever in baseball. How did he do it? Smoke and mirror. I don't know. I don't know how he did it, but he did it. For a month and a half, he was the best reliever in baseball in the beginning of the season. But who knows? Because he stinks the rest of the year, and the true pitcher is going to come out. Baseball seasons are long, folks. And you're going to, at the end of the year, you're going to get to the back of your baseball card. And Brazoban is certainly getting there, if not exceeding it. Because he has flashes of it where he's good, he gets a big out, but he's just terrible. I don't trust Reed Garrett because he's hit or miss. The Mets need to get 1 or 2 arms, at least one, minimum one. Minimum. You need one solid arm in this bullpen to pair up with Stanek, who I trust, and with Diaz in the 9th inning. And maybe the arm is already in your organization. It might be Sproat. How is he going to translate to pitching a starter to reliever? Who knows? Who knows? That's why these guys get big money. That's why we talk about it, because we don't know, and that's why people like Stern gets big money for making these deals, because I don't know. Tidwell, I think, is probably your most likely to go to the bullpen if for some reason the Mets don't get an arm, and I can't imagine them not making a trade. I think there's a good chance either Beatty, Vientos, or Mauricio, or Acuna, or 2 of those 4 are not on the team next year. Or in a week, I should say. Very good possibility. And you know what? Just hope that who they get in return takes care of business. You don't have to root against them when they're on the other team. They might be stars. We don't know. No one can say for certain Vientos is going to be a superstar. You can't. Because he was a superstar last year, sucks this year. Mauricio, you don't know for certain. These are not, 100% deals. Or even we're like, oh, this guy's a can't miss. They're not can't miss. Mets don't have any can't misses. So you take a chance. You roll the dice. You get what you need now. Mets are a win now team. Right? Take that extra step. Get what you need to beat the Dodgers. Get what you need to beat the Yankees. get what you need to advance in the playoffs, and worry about the future in the future. And that's all you can do. And that's what I want David Stearns to do. He knows what he needs. We know what the Mets need. We know it's bullpen. We watched last night. That was terrible. We've seen too many of last night's games. Don't want to see him anymore going forward. Mets and Padres tonight at 9:40. 9:40, folks. Everybody, 9:40. Sean Manaea on the mound for the Mets, going for his second win of the season. He's still ramping it up. I'm not worried about Manaea. Let's see if the bullpen can hold on. Let's see if Vientos and Mauricio can keep it. The best case scenario is they keep hitting. All these kids, all these possible trade pieces, have them all keep hitting. It's going to make it a little harder to get away, but you'll get over it. You'll get over it. It's only a week worth of playing here. Mets, Padres tonight. I'm Bob Walters. Don't forget to, if you're listening on TikTok, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We got some of our best clips on TikTok. Go through those posts that we got, and you'll enjoy them, I promise. Everybody else, listen, if you're on YouTube, make sure you subscribe. Make sure you leave us a review if you're listening on the podcast. Everywhere. So this has been Locked Up Sports Live, Mets trade deadline talk. That's it for me, folks. I got to go get my kid up from her nap before she's up all night, and I don't get to watch the Mets game. So that does it for me. I'm Bob Walters from the Brian Gunzel Studios. See ya.